What's up, everybody? This is Harley, and welcome back to this bonus episode of the Unapologetically Spicy podcast. I'm dedicating my first bonus episode to my 2024 Wrapped. Think Spotify Wrapped, but for life, growth, and all things that happened and shaped this year. Let's start rapping. Now, before we dive into the highlights, lowlights, and everything in between, I just want to take a moment to say thank you to every single one of you who's been rocking with me this year. Whether you've been here since day one or just joined the fam, I see you, I appreciate you, and you're the reason I keep showing up. Your support means the world to me, and it's because of you that I've been able to keep showing up authentically, even on the hardest days. And there were a lot of hard days this year. 2024 has been the hardest, most character building, and transformative year of my life so far. Let's set the stage. And fair warning, my year was pretty heavy. When the year had started, I was in an abusive relationship and working in a toxic remote workplace. I had given more than my all to these two pillars of my life that I thought were most important. I was engaged to a man who I still saw as the love of my life, despite how he treated me. I was a stepmom to a sweet, funny, and struggling little boy. I built the department I was working in at my company, and I could feel the energy and see the writing on the wall that they wanted to get rid of me. And my fiance wanted me, but also resented my presence. I was so deeply depressed because I really thought that no one wanted or loved me. So I guess you could say that my 2024 started with both my job and my relationship toxicity reaching an all-time high. In December 2023, I gave my ex-fiance a deadline since he had bought and was about to close on a house without my consent and barely any input, despite me telling him what a bad idea it was, or even trying to compromise on what I viewed as his bad decision. Either way, I gave him until June to join me in doing the work to repair our relationship, even though the house was the metaphorical straw that broke the camel's back. I remember walking through that house so upset, visualizing and thinking about all the renovations and repairs that would have to be made to make the house even semi-comfortable for me and my idea of our family. I had thought about all the stress my fiance would be under because I subconsciously knew that he couldn't juggle work, his relationship with me, our family, and his self-care. But I still gave him the chance to try, and even offered to help with organizing the renovations by soliciting a friend to guide us through the repair process and helping to pick out paint colors for my fiance's house. I picked the color yellow for what would have been our bedroom because to me, the color yellow is happy, and I so desperately wanted us to be happy. Happy with each other, happy in our home, happy and more fulfilled, just happy. Meanwhile, I was giving my all at a job for a company that didn't appreciate the work I put in. Week in, week out, day in and day out. I dealt with my boss's passive aggressiveness, microaggressions, and toxicity. I kept telling her how isolated and alone I felt working under her, how I felt out of the loop on important trainings and communications. I even asked several times if I could travel out to the location hub the team was working out of. It wasn't until I had a wedding to attend in March near the hub that I was offered or allowed to come up. All my effort and begging and pleading and work, tears and sweat, that all meant nothing. By February, I realized I may be making a mistake in trying to make my relationship work after he and I got into yet another fight and he called me childish. It was at that point I realized just how tired I was of the name calling and the verbal and emotional abuse. I was tired of the non apologies and the threats. I was tired of the half compliments and being viewed as less than. I loved this man with all of my heart and would have and did give him more of me than I gave anyone else. I gave this man more than 4 years of my life, dreams, hopes, wishes, body, and soul. I moved across the country for him. I lost 2 babies and my peace of mind. To my fiance, I was a parasite. I was childish. I wasn't a real mother. I was overreacting. When I got compliments, they started becoming more backhanded than before. Things like, "You're more beautiful than usual." And as more time passed, I realized I didn't deserve how he treated me during all that time. And here I was, mostly silent about it. Would I be foolish to hope and pray and wish that maybe, just maybe, this is the time he'll start working on turning his behavior around? I didn't have to hope for long. By the end of April, my relationship ended, and shortly after, my job let me go. It felt like the universe hit me with a 1-2 punch, and I was left gasping for air. Losing those 2 foundational pillars in my life shook me to my core, especially with what my ex-fiance did to me after we broke up. And he knows what he did. Regardless, if there's one thing I've come to learn this year, it's that sometimes you have to lose what's no longer serving you to make space for what's meant to align with your purpose. It was a humbling, heart-wrenching way to kick off the year. But looking back, it set the stage for so much growth and healing. Let's kick off with the wins because we gotta celebrate the good stuff, right? First up, just this month, your girl got her first ever office. Listen, as a neurospicy Black woman, creating a space that feels safe and inspiring in mine, it's been a game changer. I've been planning on decking it out with all the cozy vibes. Think affirmations on the walls, sensory friendly items, plants that bring a little life to the space, and a touch of Black girl magic everywhere. It's going to become more than just a workspace. It'll be my sanctuary, a space where I can fully show up as myself. Finally, getting this job in the field that I had been dreaming of pursuing for the past 2 years was so rewarding after spending most of this year struggling with medical problems and financials. Imagine going from losing your job and ending a significant relationship to having to have surgery and dealing with the post surgical symptoms. And speaking of wins, I've got to shout out the smaller but still significant moments, like learning to love cooking and baking again, doing more crafting and sewing, saying more affirmations to myself, even smiling and laughing more. And of course, let's not forget the creation and growth of this podcast. I got the idea earlier this year and wondered why, in a world oversaturated with true crime, self help, and all sorts of other podcasts, I hadn't yet found a podcast that was more personal and more personally related to me, making me go, hell yeah, or I know that's right. And since March, Unapologetically Spicy has reached new ears, built new connections, and it's on its way to becoming a space for healing and community. We've started tackling heavy topics, like most recently, navigating a parent's narcissistic tendencies and the journey to set boundaries, and y'all showed up with so much love and vulnerability. That's what this space is about, and I'm so proud of it. The stories you've shared with me, the feedback you've given, and the sense of community we've built together, that's the real win. Progress doesn't have to be monumental. Sometimes it's just about showing up for yourself in small but significant and meaningful ways. Now let's get into the lessons because what's growth without learning? One of the biggest lessons I've had this year is that boundaries are not just a form of self-care. They're a form of survival. As someone who's still navigating the impact of growing up with a parent who exhibited toxic behaviors and also still navigating the aftermath of the most significant relationship in my life so far, I've learned that protecting my peace is non-negotiable. Therapy has been my anchor, helping me untangle the guilt and find compassion for myself in ways I never imagined. Setting those boundaries has been painful at times, but it's also been the most liberating thing I've ever done. Another major lesson: community matters. From friends who sent me Venmo love when my bank account was screaming and sobbing like I was, to those who simply held space for me to cry or vent, I've learned that leaning on people doesn't make you weak. It makes you human. I've learned to ask for help when I need it, to say thank you without feeling like I owe anyone anything, and to just trust that the people who love me genuinely want to support me. But that lesson came with the hard, sad truth that the people who I thought loved me genuinely might have not after all. For the longest time, I convinced myself that I just needed to try harder, love more, or be more patient. With my fiance, I dived into trying to understand my partner and how to help him. And in the process, I became less than who I really was. And with my mother, I made excuses and allowances to keep the peace, which ended up hurting me more in the end. But the truth is, no amount of love or patience can fix someone who doesn't want to be held accountable for their actions or their words. And with my mother, forming my own identity seemed to come off as a betrayal to her. And holding on to the things that almost broke me, almost shamelessly. It took me far too long to acknowledge everything for what it was. But once I did, it was like the fog lifted. Finally, breaking off my engagement and relationship wasn't just about walking away from a toxic partner. It was about reclaiming my voice, my power, and my future. Admittingly, in an effort to reclaim my power and future and to just feel good, during the summer, I shoved down my feelings of grief and sadness and jumped into something new. Once I realized what I had done, I took a hard and necessary step back and slowed the fuck down. But also, therapy played a huge role in helping me process my experience, and so did leaning on my support system. Breaking free wasn't easy, but it was necessary. And it's a reminder that we deserve relationships, romantic or otherwise, that uplift us, not diminish us. Even still, there were times I doubted myself and I wondered if I was the problem. I kept going back to moments in our relationship where I would think back and say, well, I should have done this instead, or I could have done that. But I have to remind myself that I did the best with what I had and knew at the time. And even if I was able to, or willing to try again, he married someone else less than 6 months after we ended our engagement. He's got his life with her now. And although I still have those moments where I still wish it were me wearing the beautiful wedding dress I picked out years ago, saying I do at the altar, or eventually having our miracle baby so we'd be a family of 4 or even 5 instead of 3. I really do hope that he and his son are happy and thriving, because all I want for them at the end of the day is to be happy and healthy, physically, mentally, emotionally, and spiritually. That chapter taught me the importance of self-worth. I've learned that love should never come at the expense of your mental health or your sense of self. And now, looking back, I feel nothing but gratitude for the strength it took to walk away and the lessons that have made me stronger. And I wouldn't have gotten that strength if I didn't have a support system that believed in me, especially when I didn't believe in myself. Okay, so what's next? What's on the horizon for 2025? For one, I'm hoping to be more consistent with the Unapologetically Spicy podcast so I could take it to the next level. Add some guests to the podcast, like another neuro spicy black woman, or maybe a neuro spicy black man to talk about the male experience. Maybe I'll start doing some video episodes. Maybe you'll all get to see my face. I also want to spotlight some other amazing creators in the neurodivergent and Black communities. What do y'all think? Slide into my DMs and let me know what you want to see or hear next year. Whether it's through my career, this podcast, or just showing up authentically in every space I occupy, I'm here to make waves. I want to lean more into joy, maybe do more travel, more creative projects, or spend more time with the people who make my heart happy. Because if there's one thing 2024 taught me, it's that life is too short not to savor every moment. And I'm hoping to let 2025 be the year I allow myself to believe that I am worthy of joy, love, and abundance, not just for a moment, but a lifetime. All right, y'all, that's a wrap on my 2024 Wrapped. Thank you again for being a part of my journey, for holding space for my truths, and for allowing me to hold space for yours. As we close out this year, I hope you'll take a moment to reflect on your own Wrapped. What did you learn? What are you celebrating? And what goals are you setting for 2025? Whatever your goals are, make sure one of your goals is dropping the Unapologetically Spicy podcast to follow on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, iHeartRadio, or wherever you get your podcast fix. Follow the podcast on Instagram at Unapologetically Spicy Pod or on X, formerly known as Twitter, at Unapollo Spicy Pod. Want to talk about the podcast online? Use hashtag Unapologetically Spicy Pod to start the conversation. Leave a comment on the show's page on Spotify or leave a review on our official Facebook page. And until next time, take care of yourselves and remember, you're allowed to be real, raw, and spicy, unapologetically. Here's to 2025, and here's to you. Stay spicy, lovelies. Bye.